well, let's suppose they have a threshold. Let's say there's a $700,000 threshold that they're not going to impose the cleaner clause unless you've reached this threshold. And it's generally applies primarily to fixed price contracts because on a cost type contract, the government is not going to get harmed because all you can propose is your cost that you're actually incurring. So they get a chance to look at these. They can either allow them or disallow them at the time when they do their annual audit. TINA comes into effect if on a fixed price contract, let's supposing that you bidding a contract's $1 million and you're proposing and based your contract is primarily based all on labor in-house. So you negotiate it based on that, and what they do is when you submit the proposal, you certify it that all the cost and pricing data is current, accurate, and complete as of a particular date. At the time you negotiate this, you say, I'm not going to use my labor. I'm going to subcontract this all out. So by subcontracting out, if you don't disclose this to the government, your negotiation is defective. And they can come back to you and calculate the difference of what using your own labor versus a subcontract labor costs the government. And that's the defective portion. There's a lot of things. There's 5 different things the burden of proof is upon the government to determine that this contract was defective. It has to be based on factual data. You would have to known this at the time the negotiation took place. It can't be based on estimates or judgments. That isn't factual data. There's a lot of different, and you have to prove the government was harmed by this. There's a lot of different scenarios. I don't want to get into this whole situation, but basically, and the penalties on TINA, again, they're severe. It's not only the cost that you have to reimburse the government, but there are also penalties associated, penalties plus interest. And you won't run into a situation until you have a threshold, a fair fixed threshold of $700,000 currently. And the clause has to be in the contract. The truth in negotiations clause has to be in the contract. And again, that gets back to looking at these contracts to make sure you're knowledgeable of the clauses that are there and that what can happen to you later at a subsequent time. TINA, it's only 3 years, but the statute of limitation runs for 7 years after the contract's complete.
When Tom says the government was harmed, what he is referring to is that the price paid on the contract is higher than it would have been had you disclosed the information that you did not disclose.
Right. Like Prince, yeah. If say the contractor performed and the subcontract, using the subcontract, come out to the similar type of situation where you're using your own labor, there's no harm done. Okay, but there's a lot of different things that have to take place before, and certainly you'd want to, if you had this situation, you want to seek out help as to before you get into agreement with DCA. DCA might come in and say, hey, this contract's effective. It may not be effective. You have to, they have to prove all these items. Are there any other questions?
Do you want to just give the acronym for TINA?
What is what?
Why don't you give the acronym?
It stands for the Truth in Negotiations.
Truth in Negotiations, yeah. Yeah, truth in negotiations it's not a regulation either. It's not a FAR regulation. It's a law. It's a federal law. And you won't find it under the FAR regulations. You'll find it references in the DCA manual as to their review process, but it's a federal law. So, and this, I should mention, because it's a law, it's not only prosecutable civilly, but it can be prosecutable criminally. In other words, if you're breaking the law, if they can prove that the intent was to violate the statute, you can go to jail for it. It's not just money.